Today we're stepping onto some really sensitive ground, the most vulnerable terrain of human connection, really, intimacy.
Hmm.
It's that space where our whole internal history, all the difficult, complicated moments, just crashes head on with our deepest need for love.
Yeah.
And sometimes that inability to connect or that feeling of profound discomfort when a partner reaches out, it isn't about disinterest at all.
Not at all. It's a defense mechanism. It's the shadow of past sexual trauma making itself known.
Right.
And that's exactly where we need to focus in this deep dive. We're trying to move beyond just defining trauma as a single event and look at the blueprint it leaves behind.
The psychological blueprint, you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially in adult relationships. Our whole mission here is to analyze why survivors often behave in ways
Mhm.
around sex and intimacy that can seem, well, confusing,
Yeah.
even contradictory.
To themselves and to their partners.
Yes. And we're here to provide some insight to validate those feelings, whether they're your own or maybe those of someone you love.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Because the first, most insidious wound trauma inflicts, it's not physical, is it? It's psychological.
Oh, completely. It's the total demolition of a person's sense of self-worth.
It just warps everything.
It creates a fundamentally warped foundation for the self, yes. When sexual abuse happens, especially if it's from someone who's supposed to protect you, a partner, a family member,
A figure of authority.
right, the victim is often taught that their personal value, their safety, their very place in that relationship is tied to their sexual compliance.
And that's the mechanism of coercion, isn't it? It's not always physical force.
Often it's not. It's this systematic emotional manipulation where the abuser installs a feeling of obligation.
An obligation,
They
wow.
learn that offering sex, even when you're deeply uncomfortable, is the only currency you have to keep the peace.
Or to avoid something worse. We see this so clearly when there's a big power imbalance, a child dependent on an abuser or an adult who's financially trapped.
And that learning is just devastating because it confuses self-worth with sexual access.
So the key to healing has to be separating those two things again.
It's the bedrock principle. The essential reframe is this: no matter what that trauma or what that abuser taught you, your value to society, to loved ones, to yourself, it is absolutely not determined by your sexual activity.
Whether you have a lot of sex or none at all.
Exactly. That boundary is sovereign. It is totally separate from your inherent human worth.
But that is so hard to internalize when trauma has been telling you the opposite story for years. And this is what leads to those troubling risk factors we see in the research.
Unfortunately, yes. Researchers have found this profound link between early sexual abuse and, well, being victimized again later in life.
It's a tragic pattern.
It is. That initial trauma often leads to drastically lower self-esteem, poor sexual adjustment.
Yeah.
And if you feel worthless, or if you believe your only value is in these high-risk sexual scenarios,
You're more likely to seek them out.
you become statistically more likely to seek them out, which makes you tragically vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's the brain seeking the familiar, even when the familiar is completely destructive.
So when this trauma is just lingering under the surface, the survivor's impulse is to reclaim agency, right? To fight back against that feeling of helplessness. But that attempt to get control back can manifest in these two major, dramatically opposing ways. You call it the fight or the retreat.
Let's start with the fight for control. This often shows up as hypersexuality.
Okay.
The psychological root here is profound. Childhood sexual abuse leaves a survivor with this deep-seated feeling of a complete loss of control over their own body.
So if the abuse made them feel helpless, the behavior that follows is what? A desperate attempt to master the thing that once mastered them?
That's a perfect way to put it. They become overly focused on sex, but it's not necessarily about pleasure or intimacy.
It's a mechanism.
It's a mechanism to seize back ownership, to dictate the terms this time. And we see a clear link between trauma and what clinicians sometimes call compulsive sexual behavior.
But it's not about desire.
Fundamentally, no.
Yeah.
It's about control and validation. This can translate into high-risk behaviors like seeking out casual sex, hookups with strangers.
And does the research show what factors might lead to this specific response?
It does. Things like the victim's age at the time of the abuse play a big role. Earlier abuse seems to correlate more strongly with these compulsive drives in adulthood.
If this hypersexuality is purely an attempt to gain control, does it?
Huh.
Does it ever actually work?
Right.
Or is it just a cycle that leads to more distress?
It's almost always a cycle of escalating distress, of
Really?
that fleeting feeling of control you get from a quick transactional encounter.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't heal the underlying trauma.
Right.
It just reinforces the original lie the trauma told you, that your worth is tied to performance or availability.
Yeah.
It's like fighting fire with gasoline.
But then you have the complete opposite reaction, the retreat, profound sexual aversion.
In this scenario, sex loses its appeal entirely. The body and mind have learned that intimacy equals danger.
That vulnerability feels unsafe.
Fundamentally unsafe. And while we sometimes see this a lot with survivors of intrafamilial abuse, it's so important to remember that abuse from a trusted partner can trigger this just as powerfully.
Because the common denominator is that shattered trust.
Exactly. This is that intimacy wound you see in a relationship that should have been safe.
Yeah, we're talking about situations where a partner just didn't respect boundaries, or where the survivor was constantly made to feel guilty for saying no.
The fear of a partner leaving, or even of violence, it just erodes that sense of safety so completely that the mind decides the only way to be safe is to shut down desire altogether.
The retreat becomes a permanent defense strategy.
It does. And beyond just psychological aversion, we see physical manifestations like vaginismus.
The involuntary tightening of the vaginal muscles.
Right. It's best understood as the body's absolute physical no.
Yeah.
Even if the mind wants to connect, the body physically locks down. It's a defense mechanism going right back to that core trauma of losing control and safety.
Which brings us to the most difficult part. How do these defense mechanisms, this compulsive push or this absolute retreat, how do they interact with a new, potentially safe relationship? This is where the trauma becomes the ghost in the room.
And the conflict is just agonizing because the survivor still fundamentally needs love and intimacy. But communicating these complicated internal states to a new partner is overwhelmingly difficult.
There's so much shame, the fear that they just won't get it.
Or that they'll leave.
Right. You can just picture it, can't you? A loving partner reaches out, maybe it just puts a hand on their back, and the survivor's brain, which is just tuned to danger.
It doesn't see tenderness.
No, it sees a potential demand, a loss of a boundary. So they flinch or withdraw, and the new partner thinks, oh, they're not interested in me, completely missing that it's this lightning-fast defense mechanism.
And then we have to confront the unfortunate reality of what's sometimes called the dark pattern.
Where victims are more likely to end up with new partners who share traits with their abusers.
Statistically, yes. Things like aggression, controlling behavior, it's not a conscious choice.
No?
It's the brain mistaking the predictable intensity of dysfunction for the safety of something familiar.
Yeah.
And breaking that cycle it's arguably the greatest challenge.
So if that cycle is so powerful, how does healing even start? I mean, is it realistic to think a loving partner alone can fix this?
That's a crucial distinction. The partner alone can't be the fix.
Yeah.
Therapy has to be the anchor.
Right.
Seeing a mental health professional is vital for addressing the trauma, for rebuilding that self-esteem, and we have to acknowledge how hard that is. It's expensive, it's scary.
It can feel like reopening the wound.
It can, but professional guidance provides the tools to rewrite that internal narrative of danger.
So therapy lays the foundation. But social psychology does show that the relationship itself can become part of the healing architecture. So what does that healing power of partnership actually look like?
It looks like patience. It looks like intentional communication. And crucially, it means prioritizing non-sexual intimacy.
Showing that touch doesn't always have to lead to sex.
A healing partner's role is to relentlessly demonstrate safety. That means no without negotiation or guilt. It means accepting that recovery isn't a straight line. It means cultivating physical touch, holding hands, cuddling, that has zero agenda.
You're retraining the nervous system.
You're retraining the nervous system to associate touch with comfort, not obligation or fear.
It's like the loving partner acts as a provocative barrier, safeguarding the survivor while they dismantle their own defenses.
Precisely. They create a safe harbor where the survivor can finally explore their sexuality on their own terms. And this brings us back to the final truth. Everyone, including you, is worthy of a love that is safe and tender.
Sex is, well, it's a profound nonverbal form of communication. It can express tenderness and love and joy, but as we've talked about, it can also express selfishness, control, and hate. And the pain of that can linger for decades, but the possibility of finding that safe connection, of creating a new language, that possibility always exists.
And we've explored how trauma translates into behavior, that frantic pursuit of control or the complete withdrawal from vulnerability. So sex, as we've discussed, is a form of communication. What profound, often unconscious message are our actions sending about our need for love, for safety, and for self-worth? What conversation are we having with others that we haven't first fully had with ourselves?